it's a shame that Eminem never really did his Relapse style again, because when you look back on Relapse by Eminem, the music that Eminem made on Relapse doesn't really sound like anything else he's made. And even when you look at hip hop in general, the stuff on Relapse, you don't really hear that kind of music you don't really hear that kind of music. Like, I don't know, I feel like Relapse was just a unique album. Like, from the rapping to the production, that album is just so different. Like, to this day, it's still a very distinctive rap album. There's not a lot of music that sounds like that, and a lot of Eminem stuff he's made, it doesn't even sound like Relapse. And I think it's a shame that he never did Relapse too, because that was a very interesting album. You know.
Yeah, there were tons and tons of good things about Relapse. I mean, the topics were good, and then the lyrics were great. The production was fantastic. So many different things about that album. I mean, when I typically get like pissed off about music nowadays, it's usually for one of those three things. But Relapse had like all the bases covered, and Eminem was just fun. He sounded like reinvigorated, and he was back. He got his swagger back. I mean, he had so many things going, and yeah, I mean, this was top notch.
Yeah, exactly. Relapse had a lot of cool stuff about it. You know, it's back when Eminem was a lot more crazy, zany, goofy stuff like that. Where now he's just a lot more serious and sober. It's not really goofy anymore, it seems, or silly or zany. Just maybe the odd song like Framed, but that's it. Um, and you know, Relapse was one of those things where when Eminem came back, he brought something new to the table to hip hop and something new for his style. He didn't just come back and make another album that sounded just like Encore. You know, he came back with a new album that sounded different than anything else he did, which is good. You know, that way it keeps his music sounding refreshing, because if it sounded just like Encore and Eminem show, it it could have been good, but it might have felt been there, done that kind of thing, I guess. You know, usually Eminem has tried to do different things with his music. He's tried new styles. I think Relapse was one of the times it actually worked. And it just seems like on Recovery he kind of went more serious and sort of popish. Um, Even though I don't mind that album, it feels like Relapse was more like where Eminem should have been. You know, Eminem was like, what was cool about Relapse is Eminem became pretty much a full-on horrorcore rapper. Like whenever Hobson or Rutherland Chung or Tech Nine would be on horrorcore stuff, Eminem went that direction. Eminem went full-on horrorcore all the way in Relapse. He did that in his old albums, like Marshall Mathers LP, with songs like Kim, but he never went full fledged. There was other songs in there that weren't about horrorcore. Whereas Relapse, he went all the way. It was a full horrorcore album, and it was like I said, it's unique. There's nothing that sounds like it, and the same goes for his music and everything else he's made.
Yeah, the approach on Relapse was so good. If he wasn't talking about like his horrorcore stuff, he was talking about his drug problem. So it's kind of like a blend of the best moments from Eminem. I mean, normally he comes up with such good topics, but yeah, I mean, there's not a lot to really get pissed off about Relapse, and with songs like 3 a.m. that actually charted on the Billboard. That was like a song that you might have heard on the radio, and just the fact that he's talking about chopping up people at 3 o'clock in the morning, that's ballistic for that to be on a radio song.
Yeah, that's what I thought was cool about Relapse. It was like the first mainstream horrorcore album. You know, it's the first time there was like some horrorcore music in the mainstream. You know, and to have that kind of music on MTV and on the radio, like you said, it was crazy. You know, and it was cool. You know, something like that was great because it was kind of refreshing. You know, because before Relapse dropped, hip hop kind of went towards a weird direction. It went towards like a dance direction. Like you had Soldier Boy and all them people, and you had a different era. So when Eminem came around, he kind of brought in a different era with radio. The horrorcore stuff. Or before that, it was kind of like the Soldier Boy, Crank, that kind of stuff around the time. Yeah, I like when the like him talking about drugs and all that stuff. I feel like Relapse was an album where he went to his darkest side, pretty much. Like he went to, it's like it's like going, it's like I guess metaphorically speaking, it's like taking your hands and you know looking inside yourself and just pulling out the darkest stuff from you, the darkest stuff from your personality. That's kind of like I feel like what Relapse was with him, and then he pulled out the darkest parts of his personality and just put it in the album. You know, like I think one of his best songs off Relapse in his days, Music Box. That song is just crazy. Like it's such a great horrorcore song that Eminem made, and it sounds so unique. I haven't heard any other rap song that sounds like Music Box. I haven't heard any other Eminem song that sounds like Music Box. It's just such a distinctive album.
Yeah, Music Box is hella good. It's such a creepy song on top of that, and it just works. I don't think that there's many folks that could go bar for bar with Eminem on that song. He really tore that song up.
But yeah, Music Box is one of a kind. Um, not too many people could do that on a song with him. Definitely, he tore it up. And it's interesting because people like Hobson and Tech Nine, you know, they're I'm not saying they're like Eminem copies, they're not, but they have Eminem influence. But what I think is interesting about them too is they're a lot more they're a lot more consistent when it comes to horrorcore. Especially Tech Nine. He did a lot of horrorcore, um, and to hear Eminem go in that direction was cool because he was kind of an influence of Tech Nine and Hobson. So to hear Eminem go in that kind of direction, full on horrorcore, it's like he did it really well. Like Eminem, it's like he does horrorcore really well. I feel like that's one of the best things he's really good at, and I wish he'd do that more. I think he's better at that than the whole chopper rap thing he's doing now, in my opinion. And I think one of the reasons I still appreciate Relapse is because, to me, like movies, video games, and especially music, I always find it the most interesting whenever something is like really dark. Like I like when, whether it's movie, music, or game, I like when they go in a very dark direction and they just get into some evil, dark stuff. I just think that's really interesting. Um, I just, I always think it's the most interesting side, you know.
I appreciate when folks do dark projects also. It's when it's like a theme and they have that going. But when I think about it, like you were saying, Recovery kind of was more of like a regular and more pop approach project. But I would like for Eminem to kind of revisit that and kind of do like another album that has like a dark tangent to it. So we could kind of see some of the, 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 the bad sides to his character like we did on Relapse.
Yeah, I want Eminem to do that again. I want him to revisit the relapse style or his dark style. You know, he only did that once in a revival with the song "Framed," and that was an interesting track because it reminded me of Relapse. Um, so he should do more horrorcore in general. He should just do another horrorcore project. Because it would be interesting to hear what Eminem nowadays would sound like if he did horrorcore. And I'd also hope that he would kind of rap like he used to, because I think one of my issues with like new Eminem is it's more so been kind of his rap style. Like I find his rap style kind of odd, in my opinion. Like sometimes his flow will be on beat and then it'll be off beat, and then he'll have like a broken up flow where it's like it sounds like he's talking and then he's flowing and he's talking and he's flowing. It's very weird sounding. It's not like his old rap style. And I didn't mind the accents, but what I think would have been interesting, what he should have done with like Relapse 2, is maybe he should have did a sequel where he just used his regular voice. You know, like if he did a Relapse 2, maybe Relapse again, but it's just his regular voice, no accents, just to see how the Relapse music would sound with his normal voice. That way you can have a different feel. It's like the Relapse 1 CD could have been him with the accents, and then the Relapse 2 CD he was supposed to do could have been just strictly his regular voice, no accents. That way, you know, it would have had a different feel to it, but it still would have had that horrorcore tone to it. And you know, I think it's a shame though. Like one thing with Relapse is you should have got people like Tech Nine or something on there, or Brother Lynch Hung. Like Tech Nine and Brother Lynch Hung would be perfect for Eminem's Relapse music. You know,